The forests of Indiana, with their dense canopies and Abe's imagination took flight, and his character began to form. Together, they explored the forest, shared shadows and fear. The air grew thick with an unspoken, and love became a place of sorrow and despair. The constant companion, a shadow that followed him through the days, its eyes glowing with an unholy light. He had been taken by such a creature, ignited a fire within him. Discovery, where every path led to new adventures and every sound told a story. It was in these woods that Abe's imagination took flight, and his character began to form. He learned the ways of the axe and the plow, mastering the tools that would shape his early years. The rhythmic swing of the axe and the steady push of the plow became second nature to him. These skills were not just about survival, they were about understanding the land and the life it sustained. In the midst of this rugged life, Abe found companionship in a young black man named William Johnson. Their friendship was a rare and precious bond in a time of deep racial divides. Together, they explored the forest, shared their dreams, and supported each other through the trials of youth. They shared stories under the open sky, their voices mingling with the sounds of the night. The crackling of the campfire, the hoot of an owl, and the rustle of leaves became the soundtrack of their friendship. Their bond was unbreakable, forged in the fires of shared experiences and mutual respect. But one night, darkness fell in a way neither could have imagined. The forest, usually a place of wonder, became a realm of shadows and fear. The air grew thick with an unspoken dread, and the familiar sounds of the night took on a sinister tone. Abe's mother, Nancy, was struck by a mysterious illness. It came without warning, a silent predator that drained her strength and spirit. The family watched in helpless horror as she wasted away, her lifeblood seemingly drained by an unseen force. Day by day, Nancy grew weaker, her once vibrant presence reduced to a shadow of its former self. The cabin, once filled with laughter and love, became a place of sorrow and despair. The family could do nothing but grieve as they watched her slip away. Abe was just 9 years old, too young to fully understand the depth of his loss, yet old enough to feel the weight of it. The pain of her loss was unbearable, a wound that would never fully heal. He mourned not just the loss of his mother, but the loss of the life they had known. The sight of his mother, pale and lifeless, haunted him. Her absence left a void that nothing could fill. The grief was a constant companion, a shadow that followed him through the days and nights. Years later, as Abe grew into a young man, William revealed a shocking truth. It was a revelation that would change everything Abe thought he knew about his mother's death. William, with a grave expression, recounted the night he had seen something that defied belief. Nancy had been killed by a vampire. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their implication. William described the creature he had seen, a being of darkness and malevolence, its eyes glowing with an unholy light. He had witnessed the vampire drain the life from Nancy, leaving her a hollow shell. The memory of that night was etched into William's mind, a nightmare that he could never escape. The terror he felt was palpable, a fear that had stayed with him all these years. He had kept the secret, fearing that no one would believe him, but now he felt Abe needed to know the truth. It was a horrifying revelation, one that filled Abe with a burning desire for revenge. The knowledge that his mother had been taken by such a creature ignited a fire within him. He vowed to hunt down the monster responsible, to bring justice to his mother's memory. His path was set. With a heart full of determination and a mind focused on his mission, Abe set out on a journey that would take him into the darkest corners of the world. He would not rest until the vampire was destroyed, and his mother's spirit could finally find peace. The forests of Indiana, once a place of learning and friendship, had now become the starting point of a quest for vengeance. Abe left Indiana, driven by grief. The loss to right the wrongs that had shattered his world. His fifth to Salem was a small town, but it held the promise of new leadership that would change the course of history. Sturges could see that Abe was not just any young. Abe learned to throw an axe with deadly accuracy to fight. Why he was doing this. The pain and exhaustion were temporary. Find a new purpose, a new path that would lead him to peace, and a thirst for vengeance. This was not just any vengeance, it was a burning desire to right the wrongs that had shattered his world. His fists clenched, not just in anger, but in a resolve that was unbreakable. The determination in his eyes spoke of a man who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. He was no longer just a grieving son, he was a warrior in the making. He traveled to New Salem, Illinois. The journey was long and arduous, filled with the challenges of the 19th century wilderness. But each step he took was a step away from his past, and a step closer to his destiny. New Salem was a small town, but it held the promise of new beginnings. The people there were kind, but Abe kept to himself, his mind always on the mission that lay ahead. There he met a mysterious man named Henry Sturges. Their meeting was not by chance. It was as if fate had brought them together. In the dimly lit alley, Sturges seemed to recognize the fire in Abe's eyes. He saw a kindred spirit, someone who had also been touched by the darkness. Their handshake was more than just a greeting. It was the beginning of a partnership that would change the course of history. Sturges was a vampire hunter. He was not just any hunter, he was one of the best. His skills were unmatched, and his knowledge of the supernatural was vast. He had dedicated his life to ridding the world of these creatures of the night. His weapons were an extension of himself, each one crafted with precision and purpose. He moved with a grace that belied his deadly intent, and his eyes held the wisdom of countless battles fought and won. He saw the potential in young Abe. Sturges could see that Abe was not just any young man, he was special. There was a strength in him, both physical and mental, that was rare. Sturges knew that with the right training, Abe could become a formidable hunter. He decided to take him under his wing, to mold him into a weapon against the darkness. The training would be tough, but Sturges was confident that Abe had what it took to succeed. He agreed to teach him the deadly arts. The training was brutal. Each day was a test of endurance, strength, and willpower. Abe learned to throw an axe with deadly accuracy, to fight with his bare hands, and to use his surroundings to his advantage. The physical training was grueling, but it was the mental training that was the hardest. Sturges taught him to think like a hunter, to anticipate his enemy's moves, and to strike with precision and purpose. Sturges pushed Abe to his limits. There were times when Abe thought he couldn't go on, when his body screamed for rest and his mind was clouded with doubt. But Sturges was always there, pushing him, encouraging him, reminding him of why he was doing this. The pain and exhaustion were temporary, but the skills he was learning would last a lifetime. Abe knew that he had to keep going, that he had to become stronger, faster, better. He taught him how to fight with an axe. The axe became an extension of Abe's arm, a tool of destruction that he wielded with deadly precision. He learned to swing it with power and accuracy, to use them into his strategy. The silver tools were not just heard, of striking from the shadows and disappearing with natural strength and cunning. Abe was not just a weapon, it gave him strength, it gave him focus. He visited her grave whenever he could, kneeling in silence to fight, ready to avenge his mother's death. Fear was a vampire's weakness, and Sturges taught Abe how to use it to his advantage. He learned to craft silver weapons, to use them in combat, and to incorporate them into his strategy. The silver tools were not just weapons, they were a symbol of his commitment to the cause, a reminder of the enemy he was fighting. Abe knew that with these tools, he had a fighting chance against the darkness. Most importantly, he instilled in him the importance of secrecy. A vampire hunter must operate in the shadows. The world was not ready to know about the creatures that lurked in the night, and Abe had to learn to keep his mission a secret. Sturges taught him the art of stealth, of moving unseen and unheard, of striking from the shadows and disappearing without a trace. Abe learned quickly, understanding that secrecy was his greatest weapon. A vampire hunter must operate in the shadows. Abe learned quickly. He became a master of stealth, moving through the night like a ghost, unseen and unheard. He learned to use the darkness to his advantage, to strike from the shadows and disappear without a trace. The night became his ally, and he moved through it with a confidence that came from knowing he was prepared for whatever lay ahead. He possessed a natural strength and cunning. Abe was not just strong, he was smart. He learned to outthink his opponents, to use his strength and his wits to overcome any challenge. He became a strategist, always thinking several steps ahead, always looking for an advantage. His natural strength was complemented by his sharp mind, making him a formidable opponent. He was becoming the hunter he was meant to be. He was also fueled by a righteous anger. The anger that had driven him from Indiana was still there, but it had been honed into a weapon. It gave him strength, it gave him focus, and it gave him the determination to keep going no matter how tough the training got. He channeled his anger into his training, using it to push himself harder, to become better, to become the hunter he needed to be. His anger was not a weakness, it was his greatest strength. He would not rest until his mother's death was avenged. The memory of his mother was always with him, a constant reminder of why he was doing this. He carried a locket with her picture, a symbol of his love and his loss. He visited her grave whenever he could, kneeling in silent promise that he would not rest until her death was avenged. His mother's memory was his guiding light, his source of strength, and his reason for fighting. He was ready to face the darkness. With his training complete, Abe was no longer just a grieving son. He was a warrior, a hunter, a force to be reckoned with. He stood tall, his axe in hand, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. He knew the road would be tough, that the battles would be many, but he was ready. He was ready to fight, ready to avenge his mother's death, and ready to bring light to the darkness. The hunter's forge had shaped him, and he was ready for the battle ahead. Abe moved to Springfield, Illinois. He became a lawyer. He spent countless nights reading law books by candlelight, vigilant and ready to strike. He hunted them down in the dead of frightened families, his presence a shield against the horror. Mary was well-read and had a keen interest in politics and source of normalcy in Abe's life. Despite the chaos of his doubling on cases that would shape his career and his destiny, he used his sharp mind and way with words to fight for justice. Abe was known for his eloquence and his ability to connect with juries. He spent countless nights reading law books by candlelight, honing his skills and preparing for the battles in the courtroom. His dedication to justice was unwavering, and he quickly earned a reputation as a formidable lawyer. He also continued his secret war against vampires. By day, he was a respected lawyer, but by night, he was a relentless hunter. The dark, eerie streets of 19th century Springfield were his battleground. With a determined look and a stake in hand, Abe prowled the shadows, ever vigilant and ready to strike. He hunted them down in the dead of night. The vampires were cunning and ruthless, but Abe was always one step ahead. He moved stealthily through the shadows, his senses heightened and his weapon at the ready. Each night was a new challenge, a new battle, but Abe was undeterred. He knew that the safety of the town depended on his vigilance. He protected the innocent from their bloodlust. The townspeople were unaware of the danger that lurked in the darkness, but Abe was their silent guardian. He stood in front of frightened families, his presence a shield against the horrors of the night. His mission was clear, to protect the innocent and to rid Springfield of the vampire menace. In Springfield, Abe met Mary Todd. It was at a social gathering that their paths first crossed. Mary Todd was unlike anyone Abe had ever met. She was spirited, intelligent, and had a wit that matched his own. Their connection was immediate, and it wasn't long before they were spending more and more time together. She was a fiery and intelligent woman. Mary was well-read and had a keen interest in politics and social issues. She could hold her own in any conversation, and her fiery spirit was both captivating and inspiring. Abe found in her a kindred spirit, someone who understood his passions and shared his dreams. They fell deeply in love. Their love story was one of mutual respect and admiration. They shared dreams and aspirations, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Abe found solace in Mary's presence, and she became his anchor in a world filled with turmoil and danger. Mary provided a sense of normalcy in Abe's life. Despite the chaos of his double life, Mary brought a sense of peace and normalcy to Abe's world. Their home was a sanctuary, a place where Abe could momentarily find himself in dark rooms, wrestling with his thoughts and struggles. Abe found a true friend in Joshua Speed. Joshua became an invaluable ally in the face of danger. Their heartfelt talks where activities would put Mary in danger. He couldn't bear the thought of her being harmed because of his secret war. So, he kept his vampire hunting hidden, even as it weighed heavily on his heart. He feared what she would think. The burden of his secret was immense. Abe often found himself in dark rooms, wrestling with his thoughts and fears. He wrote letters that he never sent, pouring out his heart and his worries. The fear of losing Mary was a constant shadow over his life. He couldn't bear to lose her too. Abe had already lost so much in his life. The thought of losing Mary was unbearable. She was his light in the darkness, and he clung to her with all his strength. The tears in his eyes were a testament to the depth of his love and the weight of his fears. Abe's friend, Joshua Speed, became his confidant. In the midst of his struggles, Abe found a true friend in Joshua Speed. Joshua was a man of integrity and loyalty, and he quickly became Abe's confidant. Their friendship was built on trust and mutual respect. Joshua knew the truth about Abe's double life. Abe confided in Joshua, revealing the truth about his nocturnal activities. Joshua listened intently, never judging, always supportive. He understood the burden that Abe carried and offered his unwavering support. He helped him cover up his nocturnal activities. Joshua became an invaluable ally in Abe's war against the vampires. He helped cover up the scenes of vampire attacks, ensuring that the townspeople remained unaware of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Together, they formed a formidable team, each complementing the other's strengths. He provided a listening ear and unwavering support. Joshua was more than just an ally, he was a true friend. He provided a listening ear when Abe needed to unburden his heart and offered unwavering support in the face of danger. Their heartfelt talks were a source of comfort and strength for Abe. Their friendship was a source of strength in a world filled with shadows. In a world filled with shadows and danger, the friendship between Abe and Joshua was a beacon of light. They stood together, resolute and determined, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Their bond was unbreakable, and their friendship was a source of strength and hope in the darkest of times.